Hey guys, it's Joe, and in this video I'll be demonstrating another free plugin called PanCake2 by Cable Guys. This is an auto panner which will be similar to panning automation, but it's much easier to use. This allows you to draw in automation which will repeat over a chosen amount of time. So this is our main window for it. As you can see, we're met with this sine wave here, which is our panning. It's starting in the center, panning over to the left, back to the center, over to the right, and then back to the center again for that whole section to then repeat and start over. You can click and drag on these nodes to change the shape of the panning, like so. And then you can also click to add new nodes to then move those to create a completely different shape too. Let's just have a quick listen with the default settings of this sine wave to see how it sounds. As you can hear, it's just a nice straightforward panning, but also you can see our waveform of what's being played and it's following that. This is really useful as this allows you to place specific nodes for different notes that are being played on specific points. Okay, now let's add in those extra nodes again to create something a bit more unusual and see how that sounds. As you can see, this provides a lot of flexibility. On our right here, we have the LFO. Here we can select whether the speed of the panning is beat synced, hertz synced, or pitch synced. Beat syncing will match the tempo of the project, so if you want your panning to be perfectly in time, this is what you want. You can change the length of the panning here, where you can choose how many bars you want it to last, or the note length. I quite like using 2 or 4 bars if I've got something that sounds quite spacey, or 1 bar or half a bar for something more rapid. If you want something with a bit more control or precision, then hertz syncing is good for that. You can simply change the speed of the LFO on the dial here, so 1 hertz being 1 time a second, 5 hertz being 5 times a second, and so on, and that's how many times our table here will repeat in that time. So let's set it to 1 hertz and have a listen. And as you can see, the higher this goes, the more rapid the panning becomes. Or you can have it incredibly slow like this. So on 0.1 hertz like this, it means that it will be 1 complete cycle every 10 seconds. Then lastly along here, we have pitch syncing, which is a bit different. And the speed is based on the pitch that is going on at the time. I don't tend to use this as it doesn't offer the control that I want, and it is most of the time far too rapid for what I want to use it on. I've just reset the waveform here to be a triangle wave to really demonstrate how the pitch works on it. Below this we also have the master dial, which allows us to change how much of the panning will take place. This itself could be a useful parameter to automate if you want to keep the panning settings as they are, but narrow or widen a sound throughout a song. For example, having it a bit more narrow in the verse and a bit wider in the chorus. So we could go from 50% in the verse to 100% in the chorus. Now we have all the fun parameters along the right here. First is step drawing. This allows you to draw in steps in straight lines, which is really useful if you want to snap to hard left or hard right like so. I found that this can introduce clicks, so do be careful when you're using this. Below this is the snap to waveform grid setting. This is really useful for getting panning perfectly in time. As you can see, when I'm clicking and dragging on these nodes, it's just snapping them in place, unlike how it was before when it was very free. And as I said, this is very useful to get all your panning perfectly in time. You can also just hold down Shift to turn this setting off temporarily, or if it's already off, you can hold Shift to turn it on temporarily, which is always really useful too. Then below that, you have the waveforms, such as our sine wave that we started with, or a triangle wave. You also have the random waveform setting under this, which will generate a random waveform based on how many nodes you have in place. So for example now, every click I make creates a new wave with 2 separate nodes on it, but I can add some more in, like so, hit random, and it's going to give me some very, very strange ones now as well. I really like having this option because it can generate some waveforms that you may not have necessarily thought of on your own, or they can at least serve as inspiration for you to create something more creative. Below this you have the move up or down in time buttons. I like this a lot as it allows you to keep your pattern but just change the position of it, so you can move it forward or backwards. And below this you also just have undo and redo, which is also really useful as well. And lastly at the top you have the delete button, so it deletes all the nodes that you have in place. On the left hand side you have different wavetables to choose from and for you to create. Each is blank, so you can either create a bank of your own and save them, or automate between several different patterns throughout a song. I like this option a lot as it allows you to keep all of your ideas, and it's a good way to test which settings you prefer on a sound by comparing them. There are some more options if you right click on the main window too. You can select all the points so you can move them more precisely and you can move them as a group. There's also step drawing, which we had before, but you can also access it here. You can also flip the channels, which I really like, so as you can see left becomes right and right becomes left. This could allow you to copy the plugin onto another channel, flip the settings and then have them playing opposite to one another just to create some cool effects. And lastly you have show triplets, which changes the grid here to be triplets instead of fours. A couple of other tips as well are to double click on a point to delete it, which is always really useful. You can hold shift and then click and drag your mouse to select multiple points, not all of them, and you can move these as you please. To change the weight of a point you can right click on it, so if the node is empty like this it will be like a sine wave, but if you right click it it will become like a triangle wave. So for example, if we just pop up the sine wave, if I right click these nodes, it will become like a triangle. If I bring up the triangle wave, if I right click them, it will become like a sine wave. I really like this plugin. It's a lot of fun and it's far more interactive and flexible than automating your panning settings. As always, I'll put a link to the download in the description, so please do check this one out. It is a lot of fun. I hope you found this video useful, and if you have any questions, please leave a comment or contact me via my website. Thanks a lot for watching. Cheers.